Welcome to Standard 7B. The goal of this standard is to identify the impact or the effect of the American and French revolutions on Latin America. In other words, we're trying to see what connection there are between these two events, the American Revolution and the French Revolution, with the events that take place in the early 1800s in Latin America. The essential question that we're trying to answer in this standard is, how did the American and French revolutions influence people in Latin America to undertake their own independence movements, largely from their colonial powers, Spain and Portugal? Once again, we're referring to Latin America in this standard as Central and South America. Another way of taking a look at our essential question is, what effect did the French and American revolutions have on these two maps? How did Latin America go from being a region of the world in 1800 that was almost entirely under the control of European powers? That map on the left shows us pretty much all of what we consider Latin America to be controlled by a European country in 1800, and how did this change take place within 30 years to the map on the right, where very little of Latin America, really just this area here, what's that was known as British Honduras, now the country of Belize, a couple of Caribbean islands, and the kind of the northern part here of South America. How were those now the only parts of Latin America controlled by Europeans just 30 years later? What was the role of the American and French revolutions in that change? Okay, the essential understanding we're looking at here is that the American and French revolutions, they took place in the late 1700s. The American Revolution, the 1770s into the 1780s, the French Revolution, the 1789 into the 1790s. Latin American revolutions took place in the following decades, the first two decades of the 1800s. So again, what's our connection between these events? How is it that within 20 years these revolutions had reached across oceans to influence people throughout Central and South America and the Caribbean to establish their own independent countries? And in particular, we're looking at the countries of Haiti and Mexico. Okay, so within 20 years, how did the American and French Revolution reach to Haiti and Mexico and influence revolutions there? Okay, so our essential knowledge is we want to know how these two revolutions influenced the revolutionary movements in these two countries, Haiti and Mexico. Okay, so we'll start off here with the Haitian Revolution with a little bit of background. What we now know as the modern-day country of Haiti was the French colony of Saint-Domingue. Okay, and more, so we see there's France in Europe, one of these islands in the Caribbean, the island of Hispaniola. France had this colony. Here we see in a little more detail, the island of Hispaniola was actually divided between a Spanish colony and a French colony, and Saint-Domingue, the French colony, was the western one-third of the island, the area we see here in the circle. This was an extremely wealthy and prosperous colony. Saint-Domingue supplied not just France, but by some estimates about 60% of the world's supply of sugar. And through that trade of sugar, the planters, the large plantation owners, became extremely wealthy in this colony. The flip side to this, though, was that wealth and that prosperity came on the backs of slave labor. Okay, and as we see here, the backbreaking work of growing sugar was done by slaves from Africa who didn't receive any of that profit. They didn't benefit or gain any wealth from this trade. And as we see in this chart here, slaves were 90% of the population of this colony. Okay, we see of overall population of about 560,000, slaves were 500,000 people in the colony. You had a very small percentage of white European plantation owners, and then another group even smaller of what were called free people of color. These were often former slaves who had gained their freedom and no longer had to work as slaves, but they also didn't have the same level of rights as the Europeans in the colony. Okay, the French Revolution, we see a picture here of French revolutionaries with the revolutionary caps on their heads. The French and American revolutions are going to inspire people in Haiti to begin the Haitian Revolution as a slave rebellion. The slaves on the island rise up against their colonial plantation owners. And we see this connection between these revolutions in this event. Notice the headgear in the French Revolution. We see the revolutionaries in Haiti begin to adopt that same style. We also see the influence of the American Revolution. It wasn't just slaves, the free people of color were also involved in this revolution, wanting more rights than the colonial system was giving them. Down in Savannah, Georgia, here in the United States, there's actually a monument to a regiment of free people of color from Haiti who served in the American Revolution. Okay, the largest black regiment in the American Revolution was made up of Haitians. Okay, and those soldiers who fight in the American Revolution in the 1770s, 1780s, they gain the experience, not only military experience, but they also gain exposure to the ideals of the American Revolution and the Enlightenment. Okay, and so that's partly behind the rebellion that breaks out. Again, this was very violent. A lot of white European plantation owners are killed. France sends troops. Other European countries send troops. One of these leaders who emerged was a guy named Toussaint Louverture. Okay, he had been a slave. He had gained his freedom. He was a general, well-respected military guy, and as leader in 1801, he is going to declare France independent from French rule. They write a new constitution that abolishes slavery, declares Haiti an independent country. Of course, declaring independence and gaining independence are two different things. You can say you're independent and not actually be independent. France is going to continue the fight along with the help from some other European countries, but Haiti will eventually gain its independence. Louverture doesn't live to see it. He dies in 1803 in French custody back in France. But in 1804, France becomes an independent country. We can see again the connection with the French Revolution. Having once been a former French colony, we see the French flag there on top and the early Haitian flag there on the bottom. The story is told in Haiti that that flag on the bottom there is the French tricolor, but with the middle white section missing, representing kind of the kicking out or the getting rid of the white European plantation owners. Today, Haiti's flag a little bit changed. We still see the same color scheme here, largely based on the French tricolor minus the white section, but with the addition of the Haitian coat of arms, and if we take a closer look, this is the square in the middle of the Haitian flag. Notice up at the top of the palm tree, we see that hat. Okay, again, almost literally a tip of the hat to the French Revolution as inspiration for the Haitian Revolution. Okay, the Mexican Revolution as well, a little bit less of a direct connection, to be honest, with the French and American revolutions here, but again, in terms of the time period, people in Mexico inspired by what they saw going on in France and the United States. The Mexican Revolution was led by a Catholic priest, a priest named Miguel Hidalgo, and he's largely responsible for starting the independence movement in Mexico. Father Hidalgo largely worked in a poor church, and that work with the poor caused him to realize that they weren't really getting a fair deal, that things weren't going well for them under Spanish colonial rule. And in 1810, September 16th to be specific, Hidalgo, kind of really angry at the system, issues what's called the Grito de Dolores. And Dolores was the town that his church was in. It's known as the Cry of Dolores. This is the event that sparks the Mexican Revolution. Okay, it's almost the call to arms, the announcement that the revolution is beginning. Okay, today if you go to the town, the city of Dolores in Mexico, you can see the church as well as a statue placed out front of Father Hidalgo on the spot at the site of where the revolution began. Okay, and this on September 16th, Mexican Independence Day, is often the site of big celebrations, fireworks, light shows, big crowds, an important day in Mexico. Okay, for almost a year, Hidalgo is going to lead an army of poor peasant farmers throughout Mexico. We see quite a long trip that these soldiers make throughout Mexico. Again, this was a bloody uprising. A lot of upper class people are killed. Spanish officials are kind of hunted down. And this goes on until Hidalgo is captured and eventually executed on July 30th, 1811. Just like Louverture, he doesn't live to see Mexican independence. The struggle does go on. Spain doesn't give up Mexico easily, what was known as New Spain. This was the capital of the entire Spanish Empire. Mexico City wasn't just the capital of New Spain or Mexico, it was the capital of all of Spain's possessions throughout the Americas. So Spain fights very hard to hold on. It takes another decade, it takes another 10 years for Mexico to gain its independence, which it gets in 1821. We do also see here, just like the Haitian flag, we see the Mexican flag set up along the same lines as a French flag. The French flag being the first of these, what we call tricolor flags. The Mexican flag kind of takes its basis off of the French flag. Okay, the standards also want us to be able to locate 5 countries on the map of Latin America. So these are ones that you'd want to be able to pick out on a map geographically. Not real sure why they picked these ones specifically. Some are ones that we take a look at revolutions, others aren't. But we'd want to be able to pick out on a map the countries of Mexico, the country of Haiti, the country of Venezuela, the country of Colombia. Okay, all of these were Spanish colonies, and then the country of Brazil, which was a Portuguese colony. Okay, so that's the information that we need to know and cover here in Standard 7B.